Former President Robert Mugabe and his wife Grace MugabeHARARE, ZanuPF Secretary for Legal Affairs Patrick Chinamasa said if people had voted Mugabe as the party's first secretary and president at the forthcoming extraordinary Congress, they would have voted for Mrs Mugabe to take over as president, and the 2018 national vote would have been hers when Mugabe won the 2013 elections. We realized the power was now vested in his wife, he said. Some of the things that we agreed in the Politburo and Cabinet were being reversed by the then First Lady. Some ministers were making a beeline to Mazowe for briefings by Mai Mugabe. We realized that we were not going anywhere with such kind of leadership. The reason why we decided to act this year: we cannot have a leader who is known for shouting at people and causing divisions. The so-called youth interface rallies were destroying the party. These were well calculated to fire Emmerson Mnangagwa from the party. We were also fired on the behest of Mrs Mugabe. We said enough is enough. The country cannot be led by a person who was not elected by the people. End of the road. Meanwhile, former President Robert Mugabe knew it was the end of the road days before he quit, and appeared relieved when he signed his resignation letter after 37 years in power. A Catholic priest who mediated talks leading to his ouster said Sunday. Fidelis Makonori, who has known Mugabe for decades, said in an interview with the Associated Press that Mugabe, under immense pressure in his final days as president, wanted a gradual and smooth transition of power to Emmerson Mnangagwa, the vice president he had recently fired and who is now Zimbabwe's new leader. Makonori said Mugabe had to resort to Plan B, an immediate resignation, after Mnangagwa did not return from exile in South Africa at Mugabe's request. Speaking to BBC News, Makonori said Mugabe will continue to have a role to play in Zimbabwean politics, providing advice as an elder statesman to his successor. In the African world, senior citizens are there for advice, Makonori said. The Associated Press interview at the Chishiwasha Mission Church east of Harare, the capital, revealed some of the behind-the-scenes maneuvering at the frantic end of Mugabe's rule, which began with promise after the end of white minority rule in 1980. And unraveled under pressure from virtually all sectors of a society worn down by economic decline, government dysfunction and restrictions on basic freedoms. Events moved quickly after the military deployed troops in Harare on November 14. The 93-year-old leader resigned a week later, and Mnangagwa was inaugurated Friday in a joyous ceremony attended by tens of thousands of people yearning for change. While Mugabe had realized several days before his resignation that he couldn't stay on as president, he clung to the idea that he could remain in his post at least until a ruling party congress next month to ensure a smooth handover, Makonori said. In a televised address on November 19, Mugabe shocked many Zimbabweans who had expected him to announce his resignation by instead saying that he would preside over the Congress, even though the ruling ZanuPF party had fired him as party leader just hours before. I sympathize with the people in the street. They didn't know what was happening, Makonori said. The man had already realized that this is the end of the road. Mugabe was unable to control the terms of his exit after a lifetime of exercising the deft political skills and outright ruthlessness that kept him in power for so long. He had lost his grip on the ruling party, where factional feuding reached a boiling point with the dismissal of Mnangagwa and the open ambitions of Mugabe's wife, Grace, to take over from her husband in a dynastic succession that many Zimbabweans found abhorrent. The military said it intervened to target criminals around Mugabe, and Makonori focused on talks with generals aimed at resolving the political crisis, shuttling among the president's private residence, the presidential office at State House and military barracks. Mnangagwa, who has close ties to the military and had fled Zimbabwe, was the one figure missing in the talks, Makonori said. Hours before Mugabe's November 19 speech, the priest said, Mugabe spoke to Mnangagwa for 10 minutes by telephone and implored his former deputy to return, saying, Emmerson, come back now, now. Let's deal with this issue. Mugabe had to change his mind because Emmerson did not turn up, said Makonori, who worked with several other mediators in the government. The next day, Mnangagwa said publicly that he could not return to Zimbabwe because he feared for his life and urged Mugabe to resign immediately. On Tuesday, Zimbabwe's parliament began impeachment proceedings against Mugabe, who called Jacob Mudenda, the parliamentary speaker, to say he wanted to resign. The president worried, according to Mkonori, that they think I'm now resigning in order to stop the meeting, as if I have something to hide. When Mugabe finally signed his resignation letter, he had an expression of relief, as though to say, "It's done," the priest said. Grace Mugabe, 52, had a peripheral role in the talks leading to her husband's resignation, only participating when it was necessary for her to come, when she was called, Mkonori said. On one occasion, she told an inquiring Mugabe that she was not involved in a statement critical of the military that has landed 2 leaders of the ruling party's youth league in jail. The mediator said Grace Mugabe is aware of her role in triggering the momentous events in Zimbabwe but doesn't believe it is all her fault. A smiling Grace Mugabe is pictured with her arm around her husband's shoulder in a photo with 2 former Namibian presidents who were in Harare for the new president's inauguration on Friday. Robert Mugabe, though invited by Mnangagwa, did not attend the swearing-in, according to Mkonori. Zimbabwean ruling party officials have assured Mugabe that he won't be prosecuted and that his family is safe, according to a senior party official, Lovemore Machoke. Mkonori didn't discuss the details of any guarantees. The priest chuckled when asked whether Mugabe will stay in Zimbabwe. Where would he go? He said he would die here.